I stole your rich husband. My sister, who hadn't responded to any of my messages, finally called just before our mother's funeral started. Hey, I just got back from Hawaii with John. I brought you some chocolate as a souvenir. Her carefree attitude made me so angry that I ended up shouting at her in front of our relatives. If you want my husband, you can have him. Just get to the funeral. Surprised by my outburst and my words, my sister let out a confused "what" on the other end of the line. I quickly told her the location of the funeral and hung up, and she immediately called back. I turned off my vibrating phone and took my seat in the funeral hall. I'm Sarah, 38 years old. I grew up in a family of 4 with my parents and my sister, who is 6 years younger than me. While my parents were strict with me, their eldest daughter, they spoiled my adorable sister, Linda, endlessly. Since she was a child, whenever Linda wanted something, she'd flash her brightest smile and say, "Sarah, I want this," and I would always give in. As a result, her habit didn't change as she grew up, and now she's become a very troublesome sister, something I deeply regret. Our father passed away from illness 8 years ago, leaving just our mother, who was given a terminal diagnosis about 6 months ago and had been in and out of the hospital. I married John, a colleague from work, 2 years ago and moved into an apartment near the office. For the past 6 months, I have been driving an hour to my parents' house to care for my mother between work. Meanwhile, my sister broke up with her boyfriend and quit her job a year ago, moving back home but still pushing the caregiving duties onto me, saying, "You're better at this than I am." I had to take a caregiving leave from work for the past month to be with our mother, but despite my efforts, she passed away 2 days ago. A week ago, Linda said, "I'm going to Hawaii for a bit," and left. Of course, I tried hard to stop her before she left, but she didn't listen to a word I said and went anyway. At the funeral, the priest's chanting ended, and the mourners began offering their incense. Thanks to my mother's kind nature, many friends and relatives came to pay their respects. Many of my colleagues also came to offer their condolences. "I'm so sorry about your mom. Thanks to you, Robert, I was able to take caregiving leave and spend the last moments with her." Actually, Robert is my father-in-law and the president of the company where I work. He has been very considerate and supportive during my mother's illness. By the way, where's John? I didn't see him during the service. He's been on a business trip overseas since last week and hasn't been in touch. Really? I'll ask the sales manager, Tom, about it. My father-in-law's company is very large, and my husband, John, works there as a salesperson in a different department from mine. His catchphrase is, "I'm always busy with business trips." I tried to accept that work kept him away, but not having him or my sister around when I needed support the most left me feeling very alone. Robert, who is a busy man as company president, took time out of his hectic schedule to attend the funeral. I was deeply moved by his presence and had to hold back my tears from spilling over. On the bus to the crematorium with my relatives, I turned on my phone, hoping to see a message from my husband. There were nearly 30 voicemails, most of them from my sister. Pick up the phone. Stop lying just to get back at me for stealing John. Her voice was hysterical and accusatory. Stealing John? Did she say something like that? I realized that during the chaotic moments before the funeral, I hadn't really paid attention to what Linda was saying on the phone. Linda and John were having an affair? No way. Now, shock and confusion welled up inside me. Does that mean John went on the trip with her? What the? I hurriedly checked the voicemails, and a few were from my husband. "Sarah, I'm sorry. But you're strong and can live on your own. Linda needs my support. So let's get divorced." Hearing such a line straight out of a soap opera, I muttered, I wish I hadn't listened to this. Why did I have to find out that my husband and sister were having fun in Hawaii during my mother's funeral? We're already heading to the crematorium, so if you want to say goodbye to Mom, come now. I couldn't leave it like this, so I reluctantly called my sister. Don't joke about such serious things. Just because you're upset about losing John. It's true. Sure, it's tough losing a rich husband who's next in line to be the president. I understand how you feel. But there's a fine line between an acceptable lie and an unacceptable one. You're an adult, you should know better. I never expected those words from you. I'm shocked that I didn't notice the affair between you and John. Yes, that's right. Linda sounded incredibly pleased. She's always loved playing pranks, and when I fell for them, she'd sound this cheerful. I sighed in exasperation. Anyway, this isn't the time for this. If you want to say your last goodbyes to Mom, come now. Enough with that lie already. Then why don't you ask John to call his dad and confirm it? At this, there seemed to be a conversation between the two on the other end. They probably never expected me to involve my father-in-law. It seemed my husband took the phone. Sarah, are you serious? Believe what you want. I'm hanging up. Shortly after, the bus arrived at the crematorium. It's my final goodbye with Mom, and my head is a mess. Overwhelmed by the past few days and the grief of losing my mother, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Seeing me cry, one of the relatives comforted me. Your mom must be grateful to you for taking care of her till the end. We stood before the furnace, where my mother's coffin lay, and offered our prayers. Mom, thank you for everything. This is really goodbye. As the furnace door clanged open and the coffin started to slide in. Wait. Where's Mom? My sister and husband rushed in, shouting. Linda tried to cling to the coffin, but the door closed right in front of her. No. I haven't said goodbye to Mom yet. Stop it. Linda wailed, while John stood behind her, stunned. Let's move, so we don't disturb others. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Because of you, I missed saying goodbye to Mom. Because of me? Yes. If it was so serious, you should have told me earlier. You didn't say anything. How many times had I explained Mom's condition to her? Every time, she would say, I don't understand, so I'll leave it to you. Yeah, it's your fault, Sarah. This happened because you didn't explain things properly. Even my husband was blaming me, which made me furious. Then where were you both and what were you doing? As I raised my voice, they fell silent, finally. If you can't say it, I'll do it for you. You were having a fun affair trip in Hawaii, right? My words left our relatives in stunned silence, their whispers filling the air. Up until now, whenever they asked, where's Linda, or isn't your husband coming? I had always made excuses to avoid making them look bad. Mom, I'm sorry. I really wanted to send you off peacefully. But I knew I had to confront this here and now. When did the affair start? You knew I was taking caregiving leave to stay with Mom. It was so hard, and I asked for your help many times. But you two were off having fun together, right? Shut up. It's your fault. You should have kept John interested. You neglected him. What does that mean? You should have prioritized John. He told me you only talked about work and caregiving at home. Isn't that sad? So, he said that. When I glared at John, he quickly looked away, avoiding my eyes. You were so proud of having a rich future CEO as your husband, but that's why I took him. You're always like that. Actually, even in high school and college, Linda would always take my boyfriends away. With John, it didn't happen only because she had a boyfriend and was living with him at the time. Too bad. Now I'll be the future president's wife. So, just divorce him already. Fine. You can have John. I'll divorce him. At that point, I didn't care about anything anymore. When I decided to marry John, I didn't know he was the president's son. He had been transferred from a regional branch to the main office, where we worked in the same department. John, with his cheerful and friendly demeanor, quickly became popular in the office. I admired him, and he approached me first. Our relationship blossomed, and when he proposed, I happily accepted. When I met his family, I was shocked to discover his father was the company's president. Then promise me. Don't ever change your mind on the divorce. I won't. Are you really okay with leaving me? Yes. If you divorce me, you'll never get married again, you know that, right? I'll just stay single for life. So please, just say your goodbyes to Mom today. Linda and John exchanged triumphant grins, satisfied with their victory. Our relatives looked on, frowning at the scene. I'm very sorry for the disturbance, I said, bowing to them. Linda muttered, "I hate how you always act so nice, loud enough for me to hear. I've put up with so much, thinking of her as my sister. But no more. I'll divorce John and cut ties with her. I don't have a family anymore. And that's how I'll move forward." I bit my lower lip hard. 2 weeks later, I moved out of the apartment I had shared with John and started living in a new place near the office. I put our family home up for sale, leaving nothing behind. Linda moved in with John, taking my place. The divorce papers were signed and submitted. By now, they were probably enjoying their carefree newlywed life. Well, now that I've finished all the paperwork for Mom, it's time for my revenge. Watch over me, Mom. I smiled slyly at my mother's portrait, imagining the upcoming events. Enjoy your newlywed life while you can, you too. The next day, after returning to work and greeting everyone at the office, my phone was flooded with voicemails. "Hey, what the hell is this? We're divorced. Why do I have to pay $30,000 in alimony?" Fearing they might show up at my new place, I reluctantly agreed to meet them at a diner. The moment they arrived, John, frothing with rage, started yelling. "I got papers from a lawyer. What's this about alimony? We're already divorced." "Yeah. What's going on?" I had my lawyer demand $40,000 from John and $30,000 from Linda in alimony. It seems they had received the documents. Given the situation, you'd think they'd have seen this coming, but apparently, they didn't. I was utterly exasperated. You know, alimony can be claimed even after the divorce. That's not fair. You two ruined my marriage with your affair. This falls under joint tort liability, according to civil law. Joint what? Anyway, the fact is you cheated, so you have to pay. Seeing that they couldn't argue against the law, they fell silent for a moment. Then Linda looked at me with disdain. "So, you're just after money? Fine, John will pay it. If I borrow from Dad, I can easily get $70,000 to cover both of us. John, you have no savings. Linda, are you sure you want to be with a man without money? John's going to be the president soon. We'll be rich, so this is just temporary." "So, Linda, you're also after money?" "No, I have lots of love for him. Dad always said he'd retire at 65. In 2 years, I'll be president." "Really? I hope you become president." "Of course I will. I'm the only son. We'll see." I couldn't hold back my laughter any longer. "What's so funny?" Linda asked. But this was just the beginning of my revenge. "John, you've been on leave, claiming it's for a family funeral, right? My mother-in-law is family, isn't she?" "True, but everything you've done is exposed now." "What? Did you know your father came to Mom's funeral?" I hadn't told John or Linda about that. So, John assumed his father knew nothing about the events at the funeral. "I've told the company and your father that you lied about taking caregiving leave and went to Hawaii with your affair partner." "What? You haven't done any caregiving, yet you took leave for it. Also, several of your business trips were just trips with Linda." I reported that too. "How did you find out?" "Linda posted photos on social media with dates and locations, including some with you in them." "You knew about my social media?" "It's the same account you told me about when you were in high school." I figured it out. Linda looked panicked, and John was stunned. "So, Dad knows everything? Just like my mother was family to you, he considered her family too." "Naturally, he found out about the funeral, and I told him everything. Robert had been in constant contact with me after the funeral. So I kept him informed of everything. He is furious. He also said he never intended to make you president." "What?" "But I'm the only son. He said there's no rule that the company should be inherited by family. He doesn't want a son who would do something so disgraceful. That's his message to you." "What? So, John won't be president?" As I smiled silently, they both turned pale. I decided to push them further. "By the way, starting next month, I'll be the new president." "What?" "I just received the notice from my boss and Robert at the company. My promotion to president has been decided." "No way. They'd never make you president. If you think I'm lying, why don't you call your father right now? John hastily dialed his father. Linda watched him anxiously. It's true. Sarah is going to be president. So, I won't be the president's wife? I shouldn't have taken him from you. You just said you loved me. That was with the money included. What? Watching the newlyweds bicker, I couldn't bear to stay any longer. I stood up. If you want to fight, do it somewhere else. Don't forget the alimony. Please, don't abandon me. I'm sorry, Sarah. Take care of me. I brushed aside their outstretched hands and left the restaurant. In the end, they divorced. John was disowned by his father and fired from the company. Now, he's working multiple part-time jobs to pay the alimony. Linda, I've heard, started working at a nightclub. It went well at first. But then she got involved with a bad guy and ended up in a terrible situation. And I became the president. Though, it's actually for a small subsidiary focused on caregiving, which I proposed during my leave. We operate out of a small space in the main office. Still, Robert has high hopes for the caregiving business's potential growth. I'll do my best from here on.